Hi and welcome to this video log with me, Wayne, from SwimCycleRunCoach. Well, this video log was brought about by two things effectively that happened in the past few weeks. The first was a post by Kinetic Rev on Twitter. There's Kinetic Rev, and you can link to him if you want, who's a specialist run coach and biomechanist. And he posted this article, or a link to this article, which is The Myth of Over Pronation by Greame Obree. Greame Obree is a sports coach or running coach and running shop owner in the United States. And the interesting thing is he not only posted the article, but he's prepared to put his money where his mouth is. The myth of over pronation. But that took me back to something that happened whilst we were in Sal. And in Sal I was doing quite a bit of kite surfing, or trying to learn to kite surf. And a guy called Rod, who owns the kite surf zone in Santa Maria, was saying, look, I've been here for so long, he's been in Sal for about 14 years, that my feet literally will no longer fit in a pair of shoes. And that was interesting because the book I reviewed a short while ago by Jay Dickory, Anatomy for Runners, suggested that as a baby our feet are splayed out, they're spread, and what we do in shoes is we constrict them into an unnatural shape. And Rod, literally, by always being on sand and in flat shoes, has spread his legs out and finds it, or feet out, and finds it really difficult to fit into a pair of shoes. And if we adjust what's natural and try and fit it into something else, we don't necessarily come out with the result we want. But Chris in the article points out quite rightly, the term over pronation suggests that there's a natural amount of pronation that would be seen within the norm. And that's never been defined. So the term over pronation, where's it come from? Effectively it's come from shoe manufacturers who could hang their hat on a term and build a shoe that stopped you doing something. So you get a lot of medial posts in shoes, or motion control shoes, that stop that inward movement of the foot. And now if that inward movement of the foot is natural, which both Jay Dickory, Greame Obree, and others suggest is natural, if you're stopping a natural motion, then you're liable to potentially cause more problems than you're actually fixing. And what's more, Chris points out that he's never seen someone injured because of their pronation. He's never seen someone who's actually had an injury because of pronation. And that is a huge point when you're talking to runners, because a lot of runners are injured most of the time. But as Jay Dickory points out, massive forces through weak levers is a recipe for disaster. And most of the running injuries that you see come from weaknesses elsewhere in the body or higher up, certainly not from weaknesses in the foot. And everyone needs to pronate to a certain amount, otherwise they're liable to just fall flat on a foot, and that is going to cause injury in itself. Now, if overpronation is a myth, and I'm fairly certain that you can consider it a myth, then we're doing something wrong by controlling it. And Greame Obree actually puts his money where his mouth is. He's given a challenge to people. There are certain shoes that if you currently own that are motion controlling shoes, if you replace those shoes in his shop, he will guarantee that you will run better after 2 weeks. And if you don't, he'll not only give you the money back for the shoes, but he'll also give you an extra $25 to spend on anything else in the shop. That's quite a good little guarantee, that. And the shoes he's talking about replacing, now you might find this interesting if you have a pair of these shoes: Asics GT 2000s, Asics Kayano, Asics DS Trainer, Brooks Adrenaline, Brooks Transcend, Brooks Ravenna, Brooks Beast, Saucony Guide, Saucony Hurricane, Saucony Omni, Nike Structure Triax, Nike Lunar Eclipse, Adidas Sequence, Adidas Salvation, New Balance 860, New Balance 1260, Mutsino Wave Nirvana and Mutsino Wave Alchemy. And all of those shoes, if you have one now, he will actually replace them and guarantee that you have a better running experience. I love that. I love people shaking the tree and doing something different. But I think you should also think about running in a shoe that actually fits you properly and gives your foot the motion it needs to actually drive you forward correctly. Not trying to stop its natural motion, but trying to enhance its natural motion. Now, we're not talking here about minimalist shoes such as Five Fingers, etc. We're talking about shoes that actually just give your foot the room and the motion necessary to do what it needs to do. Something to think about. Okay, it'll be something different next week. If I were you, I'd look at your shoes this week and perhaps consider, if you've got one of those I've just mentioned, taking a challenge and perhaps changing them to something that's not quite so controlling. See you next week. Keep well.